Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast, where we take a deep dive into what it takes to be battle ready in your lifestyle so that you can go to war on your life and the marketplace and win.
All right, so let's go. All right, welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast. Today, I am interviewing Jon MacDonald of The Good, a conversion rate optimization firm that helps bring brands convert more of their existing website traffic into buyers. Jon, welcome onto the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. What you're up to, where you're coming from, and all that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm the founder and president of The Good, conversion rate optimization firm. We're based out of Portland, Oregon, in the U.S. And so we've been doing this for about 11 years. It all started when I had worked with other consulting firms and e-commerce shops in the past, and really just saw that there was a huge hole missing in the aspect of once somebody gets to the site, helping them convert. Really, there's on every corner, it seems like there's people who generate traffic, SEO firms, search engine marketing firms, things of that sort. But
Facebook advertising,
social, all of that, right? But there's very little when it actually comes down to helping people accomplish the two tasks that they're at a website to do, and that's conduct the research, understand if the product or service is what's going to solve their pain or need, and if so, to buy it, to convert, to get done with that task as quickly and easily as possible.
Awesome. So how'd you get started in this?
Well, I think, we started out originally as a e-commerce development shop. So we were working with mainly athletic and outdoor brands. We helped to build out e-com. What I realized was pretty quickly, e-commerce turned into a commodity in terms of development. All the platforms were quickly going to SaaS, right? Software as a service. So ones like Shopify and BigCommerce, the ones you pay a monthly fee for, and they handle all of the servers and all of the stuff you would really need a hardcore developer to help you with. And they make it easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I decided was, hey, if that's going to be a commodity, and I'm really not going to be able to provide much more value than anybody else on that, I need to find something else. And what we were doing for everybody, all of our clients, was we always had a 3-month optimization built into our contract. So we'd launch the site, and then we'd ask them to commit to working with us for 3 months after. Now, this was for 2 reasons. One was to set the expectation with that client up front that you're never going to have a perfect site upon launch. It just won't. Right? There's going to be issues. The site's not going to perform as well as everybody hopes. You're going to have to go in and fix and change a few things and test some stuff. And that's just the nature of whenever you launch a new website. And then secondly, it was because so many brands were doing it wrong, where they would work with a dev shop that would do where they were practicing what I call the launch and leave philosophy. They would launch a website and then tell the client, see you later. Thanks. We got your site up. Good luck. Right?
Yeah.
And
hopefully it works.
Yeah. And then the client would always get somewhat frustrated, and they wouldn't focus on the right metrics at that point. They wouldn't focus on looking to improve the consumer experience, get that conversion rate up, look at the right data, right? So understanding what people are doing on the website and actually pay attention to that data. They would just, be off trying to get more sales and then go right back to focusing on promotions and everything else that didn't work before as well. So when I realized that was where the value was, what I did is I basically went on a roadshow. I went around the country interviewing all of our customers and said, why did you decide to work with The Good? What was the benefit there? And they all said they really liked our optimization mindset, and that was why they hired us over other people. So when I realized development was a commodity, we had always had an optimization angle. That is what I purely decided we were going to focus on from here on out. And now it's an actual industry. It's kind of built up around us, called conversion rate optimization.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started playing around. There's a tool that they have for small businesses that you plug into your site, a little bit of code, and it shows you all. I remember that a few years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, just playing around with that.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
And now, there's so many of these tools that are extremely inexpensive. It's really become democratized.
Yeah.
Google has come out with a wonderful tool called Google Optimize that allows you to use a what you see is what you get editor to do a whole bunch of testing on your site. And,
Nice.
It's something that's free, and they've disrupted that tool set industry, and it's been great to see.
Yeah. So like how much, like in this, right, we're talking about how much traffic would you need to know, that your site is actually performing, not performing?
Well, I think you can figure that out with zero traffic, right? And the best way to do that is just take your laptop to the local mall and just ask people to do some studies on your site. What I mean by that is give them the laptop and say, I will pay you $15 if you give me 5 minutes of your time right now. And I'm going to ask you to do some stuff on my website. And I just want to watch you do it.
Nice.
And then understand where they're struggling. And even better is to coach them a little bit ahead of time and say, I want you to find the best t-shirt for you out of all of our product lines. But I want you to talk out loud about what you're thinking as you're doing things on the site. So don't just click somewhere. Tell me why you're clicking somewhere, what you're thinking, what's driving you to go to that area of the site. Tell me what content you're finding engaging. So as they're looking through your site, you get a really good understanding of what they're finding engaging, why they're dropping off out of the funnel, what path they're taking through your site. You get a really good understanding of not just what they're doing, but why they're doing that, so that you can then use that to get empathy for the consumer on your site, basically.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a creative way to do it. I mean, it sounds a lot like your roadshow. So what are there, other areas like that you can apply that? Where else would you have somebody just kind of use that, when they're developing their site, optimizing the site? Any other areas like when they have this e-commerce?
Well, you can start from even just simple wireframes, right? So if you know you're going to redesign your site or you're launching a site, you should really be doing that type of research before you've even really designed or built anything. And it's going to make your spend on those two areas, design and build of your site, so much more effective. But then once your site has launched, and this is what we were talking about earlier, right? Don't just launch and leave.
Yeah.
You really need to iterate on that. And the best way to do that is to keep consumers involved and track. There's really 4 pieces of data that we recommend every brand track once a site is up. And that's, of course, analytics. So just install Google Analytics. Very simple. It's free. You're going to get so much data, but really you need to pay attention to that data. Most people put Google Analytics on their site and they never look at it. And that's a huge mistake. Yeah. And the reason is that you're only going to start seeing trends and understand really how people are engaging with your site if you are really paying attention to that data on a regular basis. So I recommend starting out maybe just once a week. Get in there for 15 minutes and look around. That's all it takes. Other than that, you can set it up to actually send you and email you out an automatic report every day. It comes as a PDF attached to an email from Google Analytics. Just open that and just check it out for a few minutes. You will start to see trends. You'll start to notice things about how people are engaging with your site. That's what's going to be really important over the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's pretty easy to set this stuff up, but how do you read it? And that's it makes it pretty simple. I like how you just simplify the thing. So, yeah. So what, like, what are some like big mistakes people make when they design their site?
Well, I think the first thing is they don't typically start by having empathy for the consumer, right? So think about it this way. If you own the business, you perhaps even design the products, you've been involved in every step along the way, you know everything. So think about it this way. You need to have a consumer's point of view who's never been to your site before. A new to file customer coming to your website, what are they going to see? What are they going to do? What are they thinking? What are their questions? I often like to say this, but it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar. So if you're the business owner it's really hard for you to understand what somebody who is just coming to your website is thinking and what they're going to do. So the problem is most people, business owners, especially small business owners, will create a navigation that makes sense to them and uses terminology that makes sense to them, but they don't do something that is really clear for everyone else. And so that's where having empathy for the consumer and what they're going through and thinking about the person on the other side of the screen, what are they going to experience, really matters. And that's where, we talked about doing just random user testing where you would take your laptop out and just have people interact with your site. That's where you're really going to say, man, people don't understand that. I really need to make that more clear.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it gives me a lot of ideas. I mean, I love, I think one of the hardest things as an individual in your own life and in your business, it's really to see outside of yourself, and it's like, we think we should be able to, but in the end, it's a tough thing to actually do at times, having that self-awareness. And, so, cool. Talk to about your entrepreneur journey. Like, I know you started this business and that. Was this the first business that you started?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur since I can remember. I mean, as a child, I had a paper out for years. And so, it's not something you hear very often anymore. I'm 38. Paper still existed when I was a kid, right? And so it was, it was a great experience, and it was an awesome sales experience too, because for a while, to earn extra money, I would go door to door selling the newspaper as well in different neighborhoods. And I can remember the newspaper would hold competitions every quarter for whoever sold the most, and then they would give you like $1,000 bonus if you sold the most. And as a 12-year-old kid, $1,000, I was like, you kidding me? I can win this every quarter. And so I would go out like once a week, and half the kids wouldn't even put any extra effort in at all. So it was super easy just to put a little bit of extra effort in and then get some cash.
Yeah.
I remember feeling rich at like 15 because I was just like, had a couple grand, and I was just like, this is amazing. But yeah, so that was a big thing where I got used to doing interactions with people who were different than me. And that was really helpful. And, beyond that, I've played sports my entire life. And I think sports and business are the two best competitive arenas. And there's so many similarities, especially in team sports. Now I'm 6'7". You can't probably tell that over a podcast, but I played basketball my entire life. I played in college. I still play today, pretty high level. And the reality is that with sports, especially team sports, you really need to be able to motivate yourself and the people around you. You need to be able to understand. When I had a basketball coach in college, he used to yell out KYP all the time. Know your personnel. Don't give the 7-foot center the ball to dribble up the floor, right? He's probably going to get the ball taken from him. That's not what he's good at, right?
Yeah.
So putting people in the right positions to succeed based on their skill sets and unique abilities is something that really transcends that line.
Yeah. I love that. I grew up playing sports, primarily started baseball, and then in high school switched primarily to football. And, that's the positions. And I love that aspect because you get so many different people working together towards a common goal. And I played at a high school that, now is probably over the last 20, 30 years, probably one of the top ranked high schools, in the nation, consistently, and had a couple low years, but the way that place was ran, I say that because the way it was ran like so well, and there was so much, the culture of it, the knowing what to do and how to do it was like the first day of your freshman year, before you can are in high school, you're in summer camp, you're like, forget about everything you've ever learned.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love that aspect because then, that's part of what my philosophy, that really shaped my philosophy on like how to run a business, like put the right people in the right positions, like you said, and, like have a culture, have a way of doing things and all that. So, what are some big lessons you've learned as far as like putting people in the right positions or wrong positions?
Well, I liked, you've probably heard this several times, but hire slow and fire fast, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to cut quickly. And every single time I've done that, it has worked out for the better for both parties. In the sense that if this just isn't a good fit, I will gladly help you find the right fit. And I do whatever I can do. If you need a couple of weeks to do some interviews and look around, do whatever, I'm happy to help you do that. It's again, it kind of, I've said this word dozens of times already today, but empathy, right? It's really just having a clear understanding of what that person's going through and what you would want in that position. And very likely they know that it's not going well. Every time I've had that conversation, it's never been a surprise. I've always been like, yeah, I was kind of thinking this isn't going how I wanted it to go as well. And so really it's just, if you're, when we hire slow, what we do is we actually pay people to do a small test, if you will. And it's a piece of effort that takes about an hour. We never use it. It's not on actual client work, but you are doing a piece of the work that role would have to do if you were here. And it's a test both ways. Are you capable of doing it? And what's your effort level? And do you care enough to be part of this team and part of that role that you're willing to invest that hour? Right.
Yeah.
Or do you just want to submit your resume and show up and get an interview and have the job? Right. That doesn't happen here. We hire very, very slowly. So we're asking you to put a little bit of effort in. That weeds out so many people. It goes back to, like I was saying, where I would win that $1,000 every quarter from the newspaper route because half the kids wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just like eliminates the huge portion right away. And then, in terms of hiring slow, what we would also do is, we want to make sure that the people who are doing that task enjoy doing it. So we always have some people who are like, I really didn't find that fun. And I didn't realize that was going to be part of the job. And so they bow out. And that's great. I'd rather that we have that conversation at that point instead of 2 weeks into the job.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So talk to me about how, do you have a set of keystone habits that you do, or a morning routine or anything like that?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I definitely have a morning routine. I'm up. I have a 3-year-old now.
So you're like, I feel you, man.
Yeah. I'm getting back into it. But I will say, I'm up at 5:15 every day. I have my alarm set, and I spend the first half hour basically sitting by myself, meditating, and taking a few minutes before I jump into the day, because I know as soon as my son gets up, things are going to get crazy. And I also know that as soon as I open my email, things are going to be crazy. And, I don't really want to go on social first thing in the morning, because then you kind of get sucked into the infinite scroll that is Instagram, et cetera. So I want to take a few minutes and just prioritize what I'm going to do for the day. And, one of the things I've really been focusing on this year, which has been amazing, is what's the one thing I'm going to get done today? And if I get that one thing done, I'm stoked. Right. And it's not about having a laundry list. I've always been one who put together checklists and try to organize my day. The problem with that is I'd always have 10 things on the checklist. And if I only got 4 of them done, I'd feel like I lost the day.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so now it comes down to, I have a running list, but now I'm picking that one thing today that's the highest impact, and I'm going to do that thing. And if I get more than that done, great. But if I get that one thing done, I'm okay with leaving the office at 3:00 to go play basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I like how, it's very, how do you win today and stack those victories over the week, and that'll stack up over the month and quarter and year and all that stuff.
It's that compounding effect, right? That most people don't think about. They're just, if you sit there and stress out about not getting all this stuff done and you haven't moved the needle on one of those items, then what's the point? You're just wasting time. So it took me a long time to figure that out, but it's been hugely helpful this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. It's something that really is important. And I myself, I can understand when I'm not when I'm missing the morning routine, not identifying how to win, it really throws everything off. And, it's something that I see in early stage entrepreneurs that it's skipped, right? Because you think you have to, when not realizing the potential that it has for you on the other side of it.
Yeah, there's a great book. It's called Start Here, that outlines morning routines, and I kind of used that as a guide. It was an eye opener for me. And there's a handful of items that suggest you do first thing in the morning. One of them is meditate. One of them is work out. All the things that you really should do. Choosing the one thing that you're going to accomplish that day. It's all about helping you prioritize your day and get the things done that won't get done if you don't do them first.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, most people won't go to the gym after work because they're tired, or they want to go get beers with friends, whatever it is. But if you do that first thing in the morning, you'll make it happen. So twice a week, I would go work out with a trainer first thing in the morning.
Nice, very awesome. So talk to going out throughout since you started early in business, right? Were your parents entrepreneurial? Were they or is it something you just jumped into? Well, who influenced you then?
My parents weren't really entrepreneurial in that typical sense. I think that they taught me that if I wanted something, I had to earn it and work for it, and instilled that work ethic in me, which was wonderful. And then from that paper route and into college, I immediately went and worked for the college in terms of helping them build their athletic website, and kind of got a taste for doing freelance, if you will, at that point. And that, hey, I could do this stuff on the side that I actually enjoy doing. I'm using skills that I'm learning, and I'm getting paid very well to do it. So that turned into me understanding that if I worked a little bit harder instead of going out to party every night, then I could get ahead. And that was great. That led me, actually doing all the side projects, led me to graduate college with a really nice portfolio. I have a computer science degree, and visual arts. So I got a dual degree in visual arts and computer science, two departments that had never spoken to each other. But that required some entrepreneurial mindset of, hey, how do I get these two folks in the room and the deans of these two programs and help them to understand why I want to combine these efforts? Yeah. And they bought off on it. And so it was great to get those two departments to work together, let me get a dual degree. And what that meant was I was able to graduate college, and I got recruited to go work for a ad agency that was just starting. It was two executives from Madison Avenue, big agencies that had left those agencies to start their own. And I kind of got thrown into the fire right away and loved it. And they knew nothing about the internet, nothing about how to build websites. And their whole thing was, let's hire some kid with a CS degree right out of college and have him, he'll know it all. And so it was kind of awesome, because I remember in the first 6 months on the job, I had found myself in the room with the CMO of Coke. And the guy's like, hey, you sure you can make this website for us for this campaign we want to run? And I was like, yeah, we can definitely do that. And then leaving the room, and they're like, I hope you can do that, because you just told the CMO Coke you can make it happen. And I was like, yeah. So it's a lot of late nights and figuring it out and making it work, right? And just being thrown to the fire like that really helped me get the more of that entrepreneurial spirit out, and led me to work with some consulting firms along the way, and e-com agencies, and then realizing that I could definitely do this as an entrepreneur, and that I was interested in doing that. And I'd worked with one agency, that consulting firm that had sold, and when that sold, I was able to exit and start to use some of the proceeds to build my own thing, and that was a huge turning point for me.
Nice. So, who are some of your mentors along the way? Like, anybody who's made a big impact on helping you out through your journey?
Well, I've always tried to find mentors that are better in one area than I am. And I'm not looking for, mentors that are, like everybody looks at like huge mentors and they're like, oh, I wish I could have like Richard Branson as my mentor or whatever, right? And it's like, hey, these folks, they're big names, but like,
He's so far removed from where you're at.
yeah, the chance
Yeah.
of getting there is so slim. So what I do is, I've had a bunch of great mentors along the way, and coaches have always been a huge mentor for me. I've always picked one or two things up from each of them. I mentioned earlier, like the KYP, know your personnel type stuff, and how to manage people and put them in the right positions has been huge. I've had some coaches who just like to scream and holler, and it's all about the understanding what they're saying, not how they're saying it. Yeah. And that's been huge in my life and in business, because there's so many people who are different than you, and having an understanding of what they're trying to say and not how they say it has been huge. You know what the biggest thing for me, though, in terms of mentors has been is other entrepreneurs. And I'm part of a group called the EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. Mm-hmm. And that has been amazing. It's an international organization. There's chapters all over the world. And it's all for people who own their businesses. And you get put up into a smaller group of business owners it's called a forum. And you basically dive really, really deep into business and personal and self and things that really have been huge. And it's all based around what's called Gestalt. And what I mean by that is you don't offer advice. So there's no advice sharing. And I use this in my business actually too. Mm-hmm. If I give you a piece of advice, it can only go one of three ways. I give you the advice, you take it, it goes well for you. We're both stoked, right? I give you the advice, you don't take it. I'm like, why am I wasting my time giving him advice? I give you the advice, you take it, it goes poorly. You're upset at me. Why did you, like John gives bad advice. Yeah. So the odds are not in our favor if we give advice to each other, right? 2/3, it's going to go bad. So thinking about that, instead, Gestalt is all based around only sharing experiences. So if you come to me with a challenge, I'm thinking about what have I had experience I can share that relates to that challenge. And then what I say is, hey, I've had a similar experience. Here's exactly what I did, and here's how it turned out for me. And I stop there. Most people will continue and they'll say, and you should, but you have to remove that and stop before you do that. And that's been amazing in managing the team, because when I get so much more out of the team, and they come up with such great ideas on their own, because all I'm doing is saying, hey, last time I did that, I had this experience, and here's what I did, and here's, the roadblocks I encountered or whatever. And then I just stop, and they're like, okay, that's great. And then they go and do what they feel is best. And 9 times out of 10, they do something I would have never thought about, and it turns out way better than I would have hoped.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, because I've experienced this, like, stop listening to yourself. Like, you want to get that feedback, a different perspective, but if you're just doing what someone told you, you stop using that skill of actually like leading from within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, if you're always out front telling people what to do, that's exhausting very, very quickly. And it's not freeing. As a business owner, you're going to be trapped in your business for the rest of your life because you're not delegating.
Well, yeah. And then the other side of that is that you stop growing because you're not following that. You're just looking for someone to tell you what to do, and I think, you see a lot of people get into courses and books and podcasts and stuff and just stop. I was actually listening to another podcast, and this guy's like, I took 2 years off of just listening to anybody. Like, no reading, nothing, just kind of just listen to myself, and took 2 years off. I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great idea of how to kind of cleanse your thought process a little bit. And I think, that goes back to your mentor question, right? Of like, hey, who would you pay attention to if you could, anybody? But those people are accessible through books and courses and stuff like that. You want somebody you can actually sit down and share experiences with that are relevant to you on a regular basis. And that's where these peer groups, I think, really come in, as opposed to having a single mentor or somebody who's so much higher experience than you that they're almost unreachable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. So what's happening with you? What's coming down the pipe for you guys? What's happening? Anything?
It's been an amazing year here at The Good, and one of the things that we work with large enterprise brands and some smaller brands as well. So we've helped optimize sites for like Nike, Xerox, Adobe, The Economist, on and on. But what we also do on the smaller side, and we're really attacking starting here in a couple months, is that small business suite. And so what these folks need is actionable items they can do on their website to help them to truly increase their conversions, online sales, average order value. But, all the stuff that's out there right now are checklists, there's blog articles, there might be a couple of online courses, but the reality is none of that is customized for those folks. And they can't afford to do 100% hands-on customization services like we would do for those enterprise customers. So what we're able to do, having done this for 11 years now, is take all of that knowledge from working with those big brands and experience over the years and turn that into highly customized offering for these folks. And we're starting by doing that in two ways. The first is we're starting up what we're calling the Conversion Growth Lab, online Slack community where we can come in and help people. And so there's a whole community being formed right now around conversions and optimizing websites. So it's built for small business owners and people who are running their site. And then we're also doing what we call a conversion growth assessment. And this is where for $500 per page, we help brands to analyze their websites and understand where some of the challenges are and how they can think more like the consumer. And so it's at a price point that's a lot more accessible for folks than some of that enterprise consulting. And so that's been a huge, really, really big offering for us lately. It's been fun to work with people in the trenches as opposed to working with, people who are at larger corporations and move a lot more slowly. In fact, we did one of these assessments last week, and within the week, they had made all the changes we recommended and wrote us back and said, "What do you think?" And it blew our team's mind. We were just like, in a week, you overhauled and you made your site 100 times better. I can't wait to see what the results are going to be. Instead of having to wait sometimes months for brands to enact the change and go through 5 levels and water it down because everyone has an opinion in the corporation. So
yeah, trust me. Like I spent 2 years in the corporate job and, going from owning a business to doing whatever you want when you want it at the drop of a dime to like having to go through layers of complexity. It is frustrating, but that's awesome. That's a great value too. I know that, if for the right sites, I mean, it can really make a big difference in their sales. So. Well, cool. Well, any final last words or anything you want to leave the audience with?
Just if anybody's interested in learning more about how to optimize their site, feel free to go to thegood.com, thegood.com. Look at some of the offerings I mentioned, as well as sign up for our email list. It's never a sales pitch. It's just really helpful articles for people running their own site. And we do a lot of effort around that and put a lot of time into it. And the feedback we get on how helpful it is really wonderful. So feel free to do that, and would love to connect. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. The information is on the site.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you being on, and then we'll get to talk to you soon.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me today.
This concludes another episode of the Be Battle Ready podcast. If you're looking to put it all together across all the areas of your life and be battle ready, come get connected with powerful leaders in our Be Battle Ready Facebook group, where we will be dropping new battles to win each day.